Could you please give us your name?
Jeffrey Epstein.
Who was Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein was born in 1953 into a middle-class Jewish family in a Jewish neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York. After completing his school education, he enrolled in university but could not complete his studies. He was highly skilled in mathematics, so he obtained a job as a mathematics teacher at a school. He taught for only 2 years, after which he was dismissed for failing to properly fulfill his teaching responsibilities. Jeffrey had a charismatic personality and was very skilled at building relationships. During his time as a teacher, he met the father of one of his students, who was a bank manager. After being fired from the school, it was through this connection that he secured a job at a bank. He worked at the bank until around 1981, for approximately 5 years. During this period, he continued expanding his network of relationships, which later became linked to allegations of fraud and suspicious financial transactions. As a result, various accusations were made against him, and he was eventually forced to leave the bank. Around this time, he met his first girlfriend, Eva Anderson, Miss Sweden. She moved to New York, and their relationship lasted for 10 years. After leaving the bank, Epstein established a consulting firm for wealthy individuals and, while working with them, continued to expand his connections. In 1991, his relationship with Eva Anderson, Miss Sweden, ended. The separation was friendly and peaceful, and it is said that Jeffrey himself helped his former girlfriend transition into a relationship with a billionaire named Glenn Dubin. After 1991, he met a woman named Ghislaine Maxwell, the daughter of novelist Robert Maxwell. Her family was Jewish, and Robert had long served as an agent of Mossad. This is where Jeffrey's connection with Mossad allegedly began. After 1991, the lives of both Jeffrey and Ghislaine entered a new phase. Jeffrey began luring and exploiting underage girls and then started providing this form of entertainment to wealthy and influential individuals. It is said that Mossad was formally involved in facilitating this operation. On the surface, matters continued quietly. The victimized girls were controlled through inducements and threats, while the number of beneficiaries continued to grow. His business and wealth kept increasing. Jeffrey possessed extremely luxurious residences, mansions, royal-style yachts, private jets, and a fully private island that was specially prepared for exclusive gatherings of selected guests. The first complaint against Jeffrey was filed in 1996 by a woman named Maria Farmer, who informed the police that she had been sexually assaulted at Epstein's residence. However, due to Epstein's influence, the case was suppressed and closed without consequence. After that, Epstein openly continued his activities. His business empire and connections expanded further. His girlfriend Ghislaine assisted him in luring girls, persuading them, and managing arrangements. Until 2005, no major issues surfaced. In 2005, in Palm Beach, Florida, where Epstein had a residence, police received a complaint from the mother of a 14-year-old girl stating that her daughter had been sexually abused in exchange for money. Police launched an investigation, the media became involved, and the case began receiving public attention. More victims came forward, eventually raising the number of victims to approximately 250. In 2007, before sentencing, Jeffrey Epstein was granted immunity. This immunity was granted by the federal attorney general, who later became the Secretary of Labor during the Trump administration. This alone indicates the level of Epstein's power. Subsequently, settlements were reached with 35 victims, and compensation was paid to them. In 2008, the case was closed. After that, silence returned, the old activities resumed, and his island began operating on an even larger scale, with villas, swimming pools, entertainment venues, and lounges. Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, Trump, British royalty, Imran Khan, and other prominent figures frequently visited the island. His circle of connections continued to expand, the number of people using his services increased, and all of this was happening while he was allegedly working for Mossad. In return for these services, he became a crucial intermediary among powerful global figures in matters of business and internal and external policy affairs. For example, in 2009, the Zardari government sent Shah Mahmood's name to Jeffrey for clearance. Politicians from Gulf countries knew him, and he knew them. His agents were present in many countries. In 2018, the Miami Herald published detailed investigative reports on this case and released an article titled "Perversion of Justice." These investigations included interviews with more than 80 victims. As a result, the case once again became the focus of public opinion. Media organizations, social media, and the general public became active. Authorities were compelled to reopen the case. After renewed investigations, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in July 2019. He remained in jail for 35 days, after which he was found dead in what was officially described as a suicide. However, there were serious doubts and suspicions surrounding his death. Cameras were not functioning, guards were absent, and other irregularities. The reality, according to this narrative, is that he was killed so that the secrets he possessed would never be revealed, and that Mossad was responsible for his death. Investigations continued, and many secrets were exposed. His most important associate, Ghislaine, who was his partner in all these operations, was arrested and prosecuted. Approximately 6 million documents were seized, including emails, statements, court records, photographs, videos, and all types of case-related material. However, due to the sensitivity and seriousness of the files, only 3.5 million documents were made public, while the remainder were kept classified. These more than 3.5 million documents alone are sufficient to cause shock, horror, and astonishing revelations. This information continues to emerge and is being uncovered layer by layer. This case has become the world's largest scandal and one of the most significant cases on a global scale. For decades, Jeffrey Epstein moved freely among the world's most powerful people. Politicians, royalty, scientists, billionaires. Behind the wealth and privilege was a criminal operation built on exploitation, silence, and influence. This is not just the story of one man. It is the story of a system that failed, of victims who were ignored, and of powerful figures whose names now appear in court records known as the Epstein files. Jeffrey Epstein, the center of the network. Jeffrey Epstein began his career as a schoolteacher but quickly entered the world of high finance. By the 1990s, he had amassed enormous wealth, luxury properties, a private jet, and a private island called Little St. James. In 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty to state charges involving a minor in Florida. Despite allegations from dozens of victims, he received an unusually lenient sentence. In 2019, he was arrested again on federal charges of sex trafficking minors. 1 month later, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. Authorities ruled it a suicide. Public doubt remains. Ghislaine Maxwell, the enabler. Ghislaine Maxwell was Epstein's closest associate and, according to the court, a central architect of his trafficking operation. Witness testimony and evidence showed that Maxwell recruited underage girls, gained their trust, and delivered them to Epstein. She also managed logistics, introductions, and private records. In 2021, a U.S. federal jury convicted Ghislaine Maxwell of sex trafficking and conspiracy. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Her conviction legally confirmed that Epstein did not act alone. Leslie Wexner, the money. One of the most important figures in Epstein's rise was billionaire Leslie Wexner, founder of L Brands. Wexner granted Epstein extraordinary control over his finances, including power of attorney. Much of Epstein's wealth originated during this period. Wexner has denied any knowledge of Epstein's crimes and has not been charged. Still, the relationship remains critical to understanding how Epstein gained power and legitimacy. Bill Clinton, the association. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton appears in flight logs from Epstein's private jet, sometimes called the Lolita Express. Clinton has acknowledged knowing Epstein socially but denies any involvement in criminal activity or visiting Epstein's island. No charges have ever been brought against him. His name remains in the files due to documented travel, not proven crimes. Prince Andrew, the accusation. Prince Andrew, Duke of York, became one of the most high-profile figures directly accused by an Epstein victim. Virginia Giuffre alleged that Epstein and Maxwell trafficked her to Prince Andrew when she was underage. Andrew denied the claims. In 2022, the case was settled out of court without an admission of guilt. Prince Andrew withdrew from public royal duties. Donald Trump, the social circle. Donald Trump publicly acknowledged knowing Epstein in a 2002 interview. Photographs and social records confirm their overlap in elite circles. Trump later stated that he distanced himself from Epstein and banned him from Mar-a-Lago. No victims have accused Trump in court documents, and he has not been charged in connection with Epstein. Alan Dershowitz, the defense. Attorney Alan Dershowitz represented Epstein during the controversial 2008 plea deal. He was later accused by Virginia Giuffre, an allegation he strongly denied. The claim was withdrawn in a civil settlement. Dershowitz has never been charged. His role highlights the legal protection Epstein received. Virginia Giuffre, the voice of victims. Virginia Giuffre became one of the most important whistleblowers in the Epstein case. Her sworn testimony described being trafficked by Epstein and Maxwell to powerful men while underage. Her statements were instrumental in reopening investigations and securing Maxwell's conviction. She represents dozens of survivors whose voices were ignored for years. Alexander Acosta, the deal. In 2008, U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta approved a non-prosecution agreement that spared Epstein federal charges. Epstein served just 13 months, with work release privileges. Years later, Acosta became U.S. Secretary of Labor. After Epstein's 2019 arrest reignited outrage, Acosta resigned. Stephen Hawking. On social media timelines, a question has been circulating. Why was Stephen Hawking on Epstein Island? Stephen Hawking was disabled, so how could he possibly benefit from the luxuries of Epstein Island? So, the matter is this. There were three primary luxuries on Epstein Island: sex, alcohol, and drugs. We have already become aware of the other disturbing activities that were taking place on the island. However, the discussion here is specifically about Stephen Hawking's functional capacity. The argument presented is that despite being disabled, Stephen Hawking was not deprived of sexual ability. Stephen Hawking was married twice. In 1965, he married Jane Wilde. From this marriage, he had 3 children, Robert, Lucy, and Timothy. He entered into his second marriage in 1995 with Elaine Mason, which lasted for 11 years. In an interview, when a reporter asked Stephen Hawking about his sexual capacity, his response, expressed here in very polite terms, was essentially, "I am disabled, but my sexual organ is not disabled." He also joked that, it has a mind of its own and its own way of thinking. As for drinking, Hawking was fond of champagne, beer, and various cocktails. As for drugs, there is no information available to us regarding that. In any case, Hawking's functional capacity was certainly sufficient for him to participate in the luxuries of Epstein Island. The files, what they really mean. The Epstein files contain thousands of pages of court documents, depositions, flight logs, and testimonies released by court order beginning in 2024. Importantly, appearing in these files does not automatically mean criminal guilt. Some names reflect association. Others reflect allegations. Only a few reflect convictions. But together, the files expose how power, money, and silence allowed abuse to continue for decades.